Welcome to this revision screencast for the SY4 A2 Sociology exam. What I'm going to try and do in this video is explain what I think, or what I would be thinking, when I tackle the SY4 exam paper. And the purpose of this video is to try to model the way in which you should be thinking when you get into the real exam. So the idea of this video is to talk you through the types of things that I would be thinking and the types of things that you should be thinking question by question in the SY4 exam. First thing to note about this paper is it's called Understanding Social Divisions, and what you need to know is that this is the paper that has the sections on research methods and world sociology. In terms of time management, it's 2 hours, and time management is crucial for examination success on any paper, and this, remember, is the big one. This is worth 60% of the available marks for the A2 year. The rest of the front cover of the SY4 exam will look like this. So it says that in addition to the exam paper, you'll be given a 12-page answer book. This is where you can write your answers. You can also plan your answers in this booklet as well, and once you finish with your plan, if you just put a line or a cross through your plan, leave a line and then start your proper answer, and obviously put the number of the question in the margin. These are the instructions that you'll read on the front cover of the exam paper. So it says that you've got to use black ink or a black ballpoint pen, so make sure that you take some spare pens with you to the exam. And it says that you've got to answer question 1 and one other question. So question 1 is the method section, and then the other question is the world sociology section. There's a reminder here about time management, that you should divide your time according to the mark allocation given. Really important. I'll explain more about that in a moment. And that you write your answers in the separate answer book provided. But remember that you can also annotate and highlight and underline things on the exam paper. And I would encourage you to do that, because that will help you to decode the questions. Then we've got this further information for candidates. There's a reminder that they're looking for good quality of written communication, so make sure that you think about structuring your answers, and using key terms is important in terms of written communication. And then finally, they say that credit will be given to recent public debate and research publications. So this reference to recent public debate is the examiner saying that wherever possible, use relevant examples from the news and current affairs, and we will credit you for applying that material. The reference to research publications is a reminder not to be anecdotal, to make sure that your arguments are backed up by hard evidence, including key studies, statistics, and named sociologists. So when you begin the exam and you turn over to the first section, you'll see the research methods question, and this is how it will be laid out. There will be an item which will be a short summary of a piece of sociological research, and then 2 questions, a 10-mark question and a 30-mark question. And what you need to be thinking when you turn over to this first section is the importance of time management. So for this particular section, you should spend about 10 minutes on the 10-marker, and then a further 40 minutes on the longer 30-mark question. So you need to be using 50 minutes of your 2 hours on the research method section. So the first instruction that you'll read says that you've got to look at the item below, so that's this bit of text, and answer the following questions. But what I think you need to do first of all is to read the 10-mark question first, and then read the item, because once you've read the question, you will have a better idea of what kind of information you need to extract from the item. So you can scan the item more effectively if you read the question first of all. And remember that this 10-mark question is going to ask you to identify and explain 2 reasons why the researcher described in this item decided to use a particular research method. Now, what examiners are looking for in terms of this answer is 1 full paragraph for each reason that you identify. So we're looking for a 2-paragraph answer and leave a line between each paragraph. And make sure that you don't just really briefly identify 2 reasons. Make sure that each reason that you identify is fully explained. So the researcher is the person mentioned in the item, which in this case is a researcher called Stuart McLean. And in this question, we're being asked to think about the reasons why the researcher chose to use participant observation in his research. Now this bit in his research is really important. What I would be thinking in the exam is I've got to think about why participant observation was chosen for this specific piece of research. So it's no good just giving 2 general advantages of participant observation. I've got to think about why the method was used in this particular study. So I need to link my answer very closely to the item. So let's turn our attention to the item. So we've got here the name of the researcher. Then we've got the aim of the study described in the first sentence. So this researcher was interested in the role of complementary medicine in contemporary society. So this is the aim of the study, looking at complementary medicine, which we can see from the title of the item is things like crystal and spiritual healers. In the next sentence we can see that this research design was an ethnographic research design. So it was this case study, qualitative case study of this healing centre in the north of England. Now we can link this to the reason for the use of participant observation, because when we think about ethnographic research designs, the method that is most closely associated with that type of research strategy would be participant observation. We can see in the next sentence that this was an overt piece of participant observation, that the people knew that he was an academic researcher, but that they accepted him. And it talks about how over the course of a year, so this is an extended piece of research, as ethnography often is, he became fully incorporated into the life of the centre. And this might make us think about another reason why he chose to use participant observation, that he wanted to become fully immersed into the life of the centre, that he wanted to achieve what Max Weber would refer to as Verstehen, understanding the world from the perspective of the group that he was studying. The 30-mark question is the one that's going to ask you to design a research project, and it's going to ask you to outline each stage of the research design, explaining the reasons for your choices at each stage, and then also to identify some of the problems that may occur and the impact that these problems would have on the quality of the data collected. So what I would be thinking when I look at this 30-mark question is I need to look at this design brief carefully. So we can see here that the instruction with this question is we've got to collect qualitative data. So what I would be thinking is that if the command is to collect qualitative data and I'm looking at primary research, I'm going to go for either participant observation or unstructured interviews. Then we've got the topic. So we need to look very carefully at the purpose of the research, because our research design can't be too general. We've got to relate our decisions and our method as closely as possible to the topic. And the topic is linked to the item. It's about attitudes to complementary medicine, but we don't have to use the same method that was used in the item. In fact, I think for this particular design brief, where we're looking at attitudes to complementary medicine, then probably I would go for unstructured interviews rather than participant observation. The final bit of the design brief will indicate what the target population is. So we've got to take a sample, so remember that you must make sure that you describe your sampling technique properly in your design brief, and your sample is drawn from this target population, so adults living in your area. Now remember, for these questions we can use this grid as a way of structuring the answer. So this takes us through the different elements of the research design that we need to describe. This needs to be justified, and that justification needs to link to some aspect of Grover, and we also need to discuss some of the problems with our research and again the impact that they would have on Grover. So in terms of the problems, we need particularly to reflect on the problems with our chosen method and the problems also with our sampling technique. And it's probably worth writing down Grover in the exam, because this is a reminder that when you're analysing your research design, you've got to relate it to the methodological issues of generalisability, representativeness, objectivity, validity, ethics and reliability. So these should be keywords that you're using all the time, both in terms of the justification of your research design and also the discussion of the problems. The final thing that I really want to emphasise, this is so important, and I'd definitely be thinking about this in the exam. I'd be thinking that whilst it's a good idea to pre-plan research designs as part of my revision, it must not be rehearsed to the extent that in the exam I don't take into account the context and the specifics of the research design. So even though I probably pre-prepared a model answer for a qualitative research design, I can't just regurgitate that in the exam. I've got to make sure that I really focus that research design on the topic and the target population that I'm given. The second section of the SY4 paper is the World Sociology section, and I'll talk about how you need to think your way through that section of the exam in the next screencast.